There is no such thing as fake geek girls. There are.
Video came out in about 2014, but I think that it is actually something that is more relevant now, especially what happened with comic book sales tanking because of diversity and other things.
There is no such thing as fake geek girls.
Yes, there is.
Only girls who are at different varying levels of falling in love with something that society generically considers to fall under the nerd culture category.
But there are people who decide that they want the admiration of a particular group because they think it would be easy to obtain and all they need to do is pretend that they like the subject matter. They think that getting the admiration of these people would make them special and unique because they consider this group special and unique, or just something that's different to put them apart from everyone else because they have a complex. Or society decides that this particular thing is now cool and relevant, so everybody wants to be a part of it, especially people who don't like it but think that their reputation means something. And so they do the thing that I just explained before. But continue.
We all started somewhere, and elitists are elitists whether they're wearing thick-framed prescription glasses or Gucci suits.
We seem to have different definitions of the word elitist in this context. See, my definition is when somebody is so obsessed with a particular subject matter that they think that it matters that they are the biggest fan of it and therefore know things that people don't really care about, and they use it as some sort of artificial inflation to make themselves seem better than other people. For example, when I was listening to From the Pinnacle to the Pit by Ghost, there was somebody in there who started exclaiming that it wasn't real metal and therefore everyone listening to it was an idiot. Needless to say, no one really likes them. Your definition of elitist seems to be ordinary people who are fans of a thing, who are annoyed that other people are pretending to be fans of a thing for some sort of artificial inflation of their ego, or some sort of social standing, or they just want something from people.
All of this fake geek girl tomfoolery came into the hot seat about 2 weeks ago when Tony Harris made a Facebook post criticizing most female cosplayers as fakes and saying that they don't know anything about comics.
Well, think of it this way, how many times have you seen someone wearing some sort of cosplay or a shirt, like a Nirvana shirt or some sort of anime cosplay, and then you ask them about it, they say they're a fan, and then you go into this in-depth discussion about how much you love these particular things about it and you don't like these particular things about it. You put all of this effort in thinking that you've met someone that you can possibly be friends with or just talk to and have a pleasant conversation about this thing you like, and then you find out that they're just pretending because they have no fucking idea what's going on. I mean, if someone dressed up as Guybrush Threepwood and I started getting excited because somebody else was a fan of Monkey Island and they had no idea what I was talking about, I think I'd be pretty annoyed that I put so much effort into that conversation just to hear this happen. It's kind of like, why are you wearing it in the first place if it's a reference to something that you don't get? And if it's just wearing a shirt with a band logo on it, then whatever, I guess that's fine, I don't really care. But if it's a cosplay or something, you need to put effort into that. Why would you put effort into it if you're just pretending to like it, unless you want something out of it?
Tony Harris is a comic book artist, best known for his work on Justice Society of America, Iron Man, and other titles. Here is the aforementioned Facebook post, which for the sake of humor, I will pronounce precisely as it is written, because it is a
Landmine of false capitalization and questionable grammar.
I don't think you should be talking about grammar.
Dear Tony Harris, you and dude bros like you are the reason that women everywhere feel too intimidated to get into comics.
If you're actually legitimately interested in the subject matter, there will always be room for you there. The only reason there wouldn't be is if you got kicked out because people started noticing that you're just faking it and trying to change things. Because you think that saying that you like this thing will somehow give you authority to change other people's interests because you're just that self-absorbed and egotistical about how everyone has to like the same thing as you. Or maybe you are actually getting people to be scared of being not accepted into fandoms because you're fear-mongering about whatever the fuck it is, whether it be feminism or something else, that women will never be accepted into these groups, and then some people are gullible enough to believe you and they become paranoid. And congratulations, you've just convinced someone to stop having fun. I hope you feel proud of yourself. The only real thing that I can kind of understand from what you're saying that could actually happen without any sort of weird fakery going on would just be if a fandom was really, really toxic, like the Undertale fandom or the Five Nights at Freddy's fandom, for instance. That doesn't really have anything to do with ideology, that's more just like how many people under 12 are in the fandom. But as well, you also get people trying to make their own sections of the fandom that aren't as toxic and openly admit that there are some people there. But that isn't really helping your point because you specifically say stuff about not wanting women in the fandom, and there's nothing that I can really think of even in toxic fandoms that do that. So you're still wrong.
Because if we enjoy them and express ourselves in a way that you don't personally approve of, you try to nerd cred shame us out of your little boys club.
Okay, you pretty much know that every single thing that I'm going to be saying here is going to relate to the fact that she doesn't acknowledge that fake gamer geek girls exist. And she specifies that that is the gender of fakery that doesn't exist. I mean, guys who fake being a fan of something can obviously exist because they're men and they're capable of doing such horrible things. But just assume that I've already addressed that point with every single thing that she says, otherwise I'm going to be repeating myself over and over again, more than I already am. Which brings me to the point, why are you getting so obsessed with a boys club if it's just the fandom and it doesn't actually include the people who write the thing? If you're a fan of the thing itself, why don't you just make your own fandom that you advertise as for everyone else who isn't being accepted by the boys club? Because that would just automatically make the boys club redundant because everyone would run to you. That is, if the boys club, as you call it, is actually that terrible. People wouldn't want to join it because it keeps kicking them out and it keeps having these random standards that don't make any sense. You could easily just start your own. That is, unless you can't actually do that because you don't actually know the subject matter because you're faking it, but you know. Or maybe you just want to control the boys club because no one is allowed to have any fun if you do not approve or if you are not welcome there. Which is also one of the reasons why you could be faking it.
And in the same breath you go, why aren't there any girls here?
Well, if they do actually care about the fact that no girls are there, maybe it's because so many girls have faked being in this fandom for some form of control or some form of free admiration that they just become so frustrated with it that they just want a normal person there who, isn't just trying to use this thing for their own gain, who actually enjoys the subject matter.
You design and glorify skimpy costumes and then tell us we're attention seeking for making exact replicas of them.
First off, what's wrong with skimpy clothing? I mean, if someone who is confident with their sexuality, man or woman really, they want to just dress up and feel good about themselves with skimpy clothing, what is wrong with that? Why do people always act like this is some sin? Like we shouldn't acknowledge that people want to feel good about themselves by expressing their sexuality. People always bring up that Bayonetta was designed by a woman because they're trying to hammer in that you're not going to get killed by this objectification thing. Satan won't kill you just because you show a nipple, like God. And plus, are you talking to people who design these things or the fans? Because those, more often than not, are not the same thing. It's kind of weird because before you were saying that you were interested in the subject matter and you were sick of people telling you that you weren't actually interested in it, but then now you're acting as if the people who wrote the subject matter themselves need to change because you're not happy with it, as if you're just not interested in it at all and you just want to change it. I think that's kind of funny. And this is also where the more recent events come in, such as Captain America being changed into a Nazi after being changed into a black guy and then changed back to a white guy. And even I, as somebody who doesn't really give a shit about those comics, I know that he fights Nazis. That's his thing. Why are you making him a Nazi? Clearly the people who pressured to change this for some stupid political statement that they're making that matters so much to them that they have to invade someone else's space to do so, they don't give a shit about any of the subject matter. Even if they know it, they don't give a shit about it. So they're clearly not a fan because they would at least take that into consideration. This thing that they love so much. They would have at least tried to change it in a way that keeps some of the original there. But they didn't. They don't give a shit. You wonder why people are sick of this. Plus, if you have a problem with writers and designers, why don't you make your own? And I probably know the answer to this already. It's either because you're too lazy and you want someone else to do it for you, or you're sick and tired of every time you make a horrible character that's just pushing a political position, people get sick of it and don't actually like it, so you want to try and hijack something that's popular in the vain hopes of getting that many people to notice it. It's kind of pathetic.
You and everyone who approves of your slut-shaming, fan-criticizing, sexist rhetoric are digging your own graves.
I think the only ones who are digging their own graves are the ones who are trying to do what you're doing and controlling everything and ruining it for everyone. I mean, honestly, that kind of makes sense that you're making this video kind of crying out for attention because every single other thing that you've done has failed because people are sick of what you're doing.
P.S. When you tweet and say, no, that only applies to some cosplayers. No! Guess what? You don't get to decide what women are deserving of your respect. We all are.
You have to earn respect. Nobody deserves respect. You being born and you thinking that you are so special and you being so entitled that you think that you deserve respect just for being born. You don't deserve it. If anything, I would say that you deserve it less than other people who just don't do anything. Because at least they're not so entitled to think that them just sitting there and existing deserves respect. I would sooner give respect to them if I had to pick someone to give respect to than to you. And you are allowed to think what you want to think about women and which ones may be okay and which ones may not be okay because they're individuals and they have different personalities and different perspectives, much like men. You are allowed to see which ones are bad and which ones are good because, believe it or not, Bad people and good people exist, and they come in all shapes and sizes. Also, by your logic, then you can't judge all men. Later in this video, you say that there are some good men who actually accept women like you into the fandom, and there are some bad men that don't do that. So who are you to pick and choose which ones that you can respect? All men deserve your respect.
PPS.
PP.
Boobies?
Boobies.
How old are you?
Well, I'm old enough to realize that I can just laugh at what I want to because I find it funny, and I don't have to rely on you trying to tell me what I can find funny and what I can't. I'm old enough to realize that I don't need your approval. Seriously, look at this disgusted, aristocratic look on her face. Also, pink hair. How old are you?
Now, Tony Harris is just one guy, but a large part of the male audience agrees with what he has to say. It's kind of messed up, because he dissed you too. And the startling reality that we can gather from this is that if they had their way, women would never be accepted into Geek.
I'm gonna repeat myself again. If geeks had their way, they wouldn't kick out women. They would just kick out people who are ruining it and trying to change it. I mean, look how exaggerated you are. You are trying so hard to come across as someone who is a fan of the thing that you're screaming about. You have your hair dyed that obnoxiously bright color. You have all of this weird shit around your room. You have this makeup caked on so everyone can look at you. You're trying to force in all of these references, especially towards the end of the video, and you don't even know them, you're just trying to force them in. That is how much you're failing, because you're just trying so hard to do that. The only reason that you would try so fucking hard to prove that you're part of this fandom is if you actually aren't and you don't know what it takes to do that. You don't know what it takes to just naturally have it as something that you like. To naturally pull it out of your mind and go, yeah, because I actually know this really well, I'm just going to put it here naturally. You have to just shoehorn it in. Do you not think that people who actually know the subject matter are going to find it obnoxious that you do that? Especially if they understand the characters enough to know that this is something that you're using in the wrong way. Do you not think that if you had the opportunity to actually make sure that these people weren't in the fandom, that you would try and take that?
And at the end of the conversation, when you really boil down to it, women's worth and geekery in your eyes is our looks, not our contributions to fandom.
Except all the female writers, artists, voice actors, concept artists, and basically people who don't rely on their looks but their talent to get involved.
But our looks.
You said that already.
Whether it's positive or negative, our looks are the determining factor of success in your eyes. And that really needs to change.
So you're dyeing your hair and putting all that makeup on for no attention, right? You obviously want people to notice you. That's why you're trying so hard. Everyone gets negativity once in a while, and what's wrong with getting positivity for the way that you look? Why does it need to change because you personally don't like it? This is why people don't like you in their fandoms.
Because how is it that a group of middle-aged, mostly overweight men have a successful talk show where they discuss comics, when if a group of women tried to do the same thing, they would be met with an outcry of comments of fat and ugly?
This is such an outlandishly stupid lie that the only thing that I can manage to say is give me fucking proof.
Not to bash comic book men, because Kevin Smith is a pretty cool dude.
Yoga hoses and Tusk are some of the worst things that I've ever seen. What the fuck are you talking about? He may be good in some of his other endeavors, but that doesn't make him good enough to excuse some of the horrendous films he's come out with. Kevin Smith, holy fucking shit. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I'm gonna say the thing that I'm not supposed to say.
No, please, I know it's gonna be terrible.
Evidence would suggest that it's harder to be a woman in geek culture than it is to be a man. There! I said it! It really seems like it, and that's saying a ton, because being a guy in geek culture is hard enough as it is.
Female gamers or geeks or whatever you want to call them, they are fans of those things. If they are fans of those things, I have never seen as much instant admiration and acceptance and happiness of people in these fandoms once they find out that these women are fans of those things. I know this because, as a female who enjoys games, that has happened to me. I have never seen that much instant admiration. I have never seen that much instant friendliness and welcomeness in that community, purely because of the fact that I am a female who enjoys these things. For you to say that this isn't something that happens is so fucking stupid. It just instantly proves that you are either a terrible person who no one likes, so even if you are a fan of these things, you're just so imposing and horrible that no one likes you either way, or you are not actually a fan of these things, because you would be instantly hit by this admiration, or at least this instant positivity and friendliness and welcomeness, if you actually were. Me, as long as any fucking other women in this genre, in this whatever the fuck it is, would tell you that. And with that instant friendliness and welcomeness, do you really not expect certain women who want that instant admiration and are too lazy to get it from actually doing something because they can get a free ride because they're not, say, a man, that they're gonna see this and go, hey, I can get some free positivity and free admiration and free power to dictate to these people to make them do what I want just by pretending that I like this certain thing. I don't even have to like it, I bet I could get away with that. Do you not think that it would be a bit annoying to continuously find these people because they don't understand anything about this fandom that they claim to be a part of and realize that they're starting to try and change you and control you for their own gain? Do you not think that people would be mad at that and try to kick them out? Because if you don't understand that, you have clearly left your brain in one of those comic books that you pretend to read.
No matter what we do or achieve, we as women will always be accused of faking it for attention. Because, you know, everything we do is for male attention, right?
Sometimes women dress up like that to compete with other women. You know that, right? Women brag a lot to other women. And for someone who thinks that we need to include women in literally everything, you really do obsess over men quite a lot.
We're constantly barraged with endless quizzing and it's fucking bullshit! Yes, sometimes men experience this too, but myself and almost every other girl in this culture are experiencing an endless onslaught of quizzing to prove our knowledge of geekdom.
I know that this may be difficult to understand, but there are these things called conversations. I'll say it slowly. And I know that this is difficult to understand because it seems like the only way that you can talk to people is to yell at them and not talk to them and try to make them do what you want, but I'll explain it, okay? We'll take baby steps. See, if you see someone who likes something that you do, who's a fan of it as well, you will go up to them and you will get excited because you can express your love for this thing and they will express theirs back. You will then proceed to ask them questions because you are interested in seeing their perception of this thing that you love after you have expressed your perception of it as well. You are interested in hearing things like how long they've been a fan of it, how they got into it, how they found these things, if they're a fan of these other tie-ins to it, what their favorite song is or what their favorite book is. You yourself want to say these things as well because you're interested, because it's something that you have an interest in along with this other person. And this is how you can potentially make friends as well. I know that that's a foreign concept as well, but hear me out, that's a good thing. One of the reasons that you might think it's quizzing is because you don't actually know the subject matter that you're pretending to like.
And if you think I'm making this up, you need to take the D20 dice out of your ears. D20 dice, D20 dice.
Do you not realize that the D in D20 is a shorthand? Do you not realize that you've just essentially said dice? I mean, you know, the only reason that you would have put this reference in and not understood it is if you're trying to make it look like you have more credibility than you actually do.
For like 5 seconds and just listen to what women are actually saying.
You don't speak for all women. I found it quite ridiculous that I have to say this. I know that you just mean listen to the women that agree with you, because I know that no matter what I say, you will never include me in that category. I mean, at least you didn't use a forced reference this time.
Newsflash, you are becoming the assholes who pushed your face into a locker in high school. You are hurting our community.
They're not becoming jocks just because they want to protect a thing that is being threatened by a bunch of busybodies. And why is it your community when you just said that you weren't welcome because it's a boys' club? I'm kind of confused as to what's going on here.
And you do not represent the tons of men who are awesome and amazing and super supportive of women in this subculture. It's the fucking Catalina wine mix.
But you can't decide what men deserve respect. All of them do.
One last reality check. Even if you own every single Avengers comics that has ever been made ever, you still don't own the Avengers. You aren't its guardian.
Neither do you, but you're gonna try and act like you are anyway. You're gonna try and act like it's annoying that people who write comics glorify skimpy clothing. Why are you trying to change it if you don't own it?
Newsflash, a lifetime of being a man does not even nearly educate you on the experience of female.
And a lifetime of being a female doesn't prepare you to be a man. If anything, being a female is way easier than being a man. Why is this the only way that you think that men can be trustworthy or good men, is if they understand women? Are you that bigoted that you think that someone with a different experience and different walk in life is suddenly a bad person because they don't just completely fall to their knees and serve you? You're a terrible person.
You don't get to decide who's a fan of it or what they have to do or know in order to be considered a fan.
Well, maybe I don't, but the definition of fan kinda does. And the definition of fan doesn't include you.
So you're whining that girls are only interested in the Avengers now that the movie has come out?
Honestly, not really. I kind of understand what this point is, and it kind of is a legitimate point, but let me explain why I kind of understand why people do this. Okay, so when the Deadpool movie came out, a lot of people were kind of angry because there were a bunch of these children who were trying to be super edgy, and what they were basically doing is saying that they were the biggest fans of it in the world, and they were actually saying that they were bigger fans of it than the people who actually, you know, have the comics and the games and whatever. And I can see why that's really annoying, because some people who like the comics who don't like the movie, and there were some people who definitely were in that category, that would be really insulting to have somebody who's just seen this surface level thing and not engaged in any other material saying that just because you don't like this particular thing, whatever your reasons may be, even if you're the most dedicated fan who in depth knows the character, you're just not that big of a fan because you don't like this random thing. And there are a lot of people like that for the Avengers, and as I said before, I'm not really into these types of comics, so I have no fucking idea. I don't really watch these redundant comic book movies either, they just seem kind of stupid to me. But it's completely understandable why someone would do that. Obviously there are certain hipster people who take it to a whole nother level and they get really aggressive. I understand that those people are annoying, and they're in every fandom, every age group, they're both genders. Those people pop up everywhere, but they were honestly in the vast minority. They were just kind of upset that all of these people were just coming in who had no idea about this character, who were essentially kind of ruining the character by saying that this movie was the best thing that they've ever seen and trying to shut down criticism, which actually does, especially in this movie industry that's so focused on money, encourage more of these films to be made with lazy characters, lazy action, stupid plot devices, just everything lazy. The more money a type of movie makes, the more they're going to produce it, especially if it is cheap to do so. So the more that you give your praise to this thing, the more that you shut down criticism, the more that you're encouraging these movies to be made. And for someone who doesn't like them, that's going to really anger them, especially if it's bastardizing some material that they really like. So it's not pathetic at all. And if you actually love something to the point where you're going to experience these types of things, you would understand that, but clearly you don't.
Pathetic and sad, and most importantly, so arrogant that Tony Stark himself would be embarrassed of you.
I love these forced references. Give me more forced references. I fucking love them. Go fuck yourself.